Hi guys, Ray from Whimsical Pictures here at the end of this gloriously long Golden Week. I'd like to personally thank the previous Emperor of Japan for abdicating the throne and giving us all this wonderful 10-day holiday. I have been immensely enjoying the break. Today I'm going to be bringing you a tag video. This is the Manga Hand-Me-Down Tag, which was originally created by AMeskeOhJ, as most of the tags that go around the manga community tend to be these days. And I was tagged by Laura over at the Manga Hoarder, so thank you, Laura. This tag, the idea of it is just to give advice to people who might just be starting to get into manga, might just be getting into manga collecting. Any advice we as veteran crazy people might have. So I thought about it for a good long while, and I think I have 3 pieces of advice. So number 1 is going to be to think about your taste in other media before you buy manga. Manga is a medium, it's not a genre, so any story that you could possibly imagine has probably been told through manga at some point. And this is a mistake that I see particularly a lot of booktubers make. I tend to follow booktubers who don't read a lot of YA, who might be more on the lit fic or adult fantasy sci-fi side of the spectrum. And they tend to, I think, make the mistake of going into manga as if it is a genre, as if they're getting into manga as a genre. And I think that that is the wrong mindset to go into it with. I've particularly seen a lot of people trying to get into manga through Orange, which I think is a brilliant series. I love Orange. It's one of my favorite manga. But in terms of genre, it's not dissimilar to a YA contemporary series, and that's the sort of market I would target with it in the West. And I think it's an extremely good example of a YA contemporary. I think it's fantastic. But if you are, for example, someone who doesn't tend to like YA contemporary, you're probably not going to fall in love with Orange. Do you see what I'm saying? I think if you're someone who loves fantasy, you should look at what kind of fantasy series you like and find manga with similar elements. If you like literary fiction, you might think that there's not anything for you in manga, but there actually is. There's a ton of literary fiction in manga as well, with authors like, Tatsumi or Tezuka or Hagio or Kyoko Okazaki, Moyoko Ano. These are all fantastic authors whose work tends to be on the more literary fiction side of things. So that, for me, is going to be my first piece of advice, is to look at what your taste in media already is. If you're not a reader, then comic books, movies, podcasts, whatever. Just consider the kinds of things that you like already and try to find those in manga. I think you'll have a lot more success getting into manga as a medium if you start from what you already like and branch out. Piece of advice number 2 is maybe the most obvious one, or at least the one that I've seen the most on other people's tag videos, and that's to try before you buy. Manga is expensive, it takes up space, most of it is multiple volumes long, some of it is 30 or 40 or 50 or more volumes long. Honestly, collecting manga is a crazy hobby, and I can't believe any of us do it. But there are so many options to try series and make sure you're going to like them, and make sure you're going to like manga in the first place before you go out and buy, 72 volumes of Naruto or whatever. So the first place I would suggest looking is, of course, your local library. A lot of libraries these days have pretty decent manga sections. Even my parents' tiny little local library in their town has a fairly sizable manga collection with even some very rare and out of print series. And even if your library doesn't have a very good manga selection, don't stop there. Especially if you're some sort of student and you have access to like a university library, for example, you can check to see if you have access to an interlibrary loan program. Uh, Contrary to popular belief, those are not necessarily just for academic texts. I know that when I was in college, I could use interlibrary loan to borrow manga from all around the country. And that is an amazing, amazing opportunity that students have that I don't think a lot of them know that they have. So definitely check and see if you have access to a program like that. And of course, you should check your library's website for digital services. Subscription services like AMeskeOhJ or Overdrive are often services that your library will be subscribed to. And you might be able to find some manga on those services that you can check out digitally for free. So definitely check your library's physical stock, check for some sort of interlibrary loan service if you have access to one, and check your library's online subscription services. After that, of course, I would recommend looking into digital subscription services for yourself. If you live pretty much anywhere other than Japan, you have access to Manga Plus, which is Shonen Jump's online magazine, and you have access to it for free. That includes a lot of the most popular ongoing Shonen Jump series, as well as some digital-only ones, including the excellent, amazing, wonderful, perfect Blue Flag, which everyone should be reading. And for the low, low price of $1.99 a month, you can have access to the actual Shonen Jump app online, where you can access not just the currently running Shonen Jump series, but the Shonen Jump entire backlog going back and back and back. This is an incredible deal that I can't believe you have access to. And if you are interested in reading shonen manga, I highly recommend looking into that. Also, if you happen to be an anime type of person, you probably have a Crunchyroll subscription. With your Crunchyroll subscription, you have access to the Crunchyroll manga library, which has some really good titles on it, so I would recommend looking at that too. And then, of course, there are apps like AMeskeOhJ that are subscription rental services, but I personally don't have a ton of experience with those. My last sort of try before you buy tip is buying before you buy, actually. This is something that I've been getting into now that I live in a tiny box in Japan. And that is buying series that I'm interested in, but don't know if I'm gonna, love them enough to have in my collection. I will find them on sale digitally and buy them there and read them there. And sometimes that does lead to a physical purchase. I did this with the case study of Vanitas. I ended up loving that series and I ended up buying it physically. But just as often, I end up deciding, no, I don't need that in my collection, but I'm happy I read it. An example would be Yuri is My Job, which is sort of a cute little Yuri series that I've been enjoying digitally, but I probably don't need it in my collection. And I really like that digitally you can find some really great deals. The Kodansha Humble Bundles are an incredible deal to get an entire stack of manga series for just a few dollars. And I really like that I don't have to take up the precious space in my tiny apartment with manga that are not, truly near and dear to my heart. And I think that digital manga is a fantastic way to go in terms of just trying out the first volume or two to see if it's going to be something that's worth having in your collection. All right, piece of advice number 3. This one might seem counterintuitive, and I know there are other people who disagree with this point. This is my personal opinion. Take that as you will, I guess. Don't buy volumes just because they're cheap. You know, I used to do this a lot, especially in high school when I was first getting into collecting. I would go to the used bookstore and there would be so many manga there for just like $2. And I would just pick up all of this manga that I had no idea what it was, but it was cheap, you know? Maybe I'll like it. And a lot of those are gone from my collection now. That's, you know, however, $2 times however many books. That's just completely wasted. I didn't like those volumes, or at least I didn't like them enough to keep them in my collection. I think that used manga is a beautiful, wonderful thing, but as with anything, you should start by doing your research. Even if you see a really cool out-of-print series at the used bookstore, if it's not one you've thought about buying before, hold off until you've looked it up and seen for sure if it's something you're really interested in. If it's meant to be, those books will be there the next time you go. And if it's not, they won't be. You know, you haven't thought about this series before in your life. You're not going to be heartbroken if you can't buy it. That's my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. Just, even if a volume is a bit more expensive, for me, the volume I'm splurging on this year is the Poe Clan from Fantagraphics. It's from my favorite mangaka of all time, Moro Hagio, and it's the beautiful new collector's edition. And that book is $45 full price, and I've paid close to that. So that's a lot of money for a book, but for me, it's worth it because I know that that series is one that I'm going to love and cherish with all my heart. Whereas if I bought, like, I don't know, 10 volumes of Fairy Tale for $2 a piece, you know, those would be in and out of my collection in a heartbeat. And even though they were cheap, it's like, was it really worth it? I think you should save your money for those books that are really going to mean something to you. Save your money, save your space, build up a collection of all-time favorites that bring a smile to your face just to look around the room at them. That, for me, is the true joy of collecting. Just being surrounded by all of my favorite things is such a wonderful feeling. And that is my advice for manga collecting. I hope it helped somebody. If you liked this video, go ahead, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a sub, and I'll see you next time, guys. I've got another tag video because I've been tagged twice. Very, very rare. So, see you next time. Bye.